early in the night.
It truly is. And let's take a look now, if we can, at the state of Iowa when it comes to how they're feeling in the race for president. And right now, with about a third, not quite a third of the votes in, Kamala Harris is ahead of Donald Trump. And we're going to drill down in a bit to take a look at where are these early votes coming in. And that will give us a better indication of if a candidate is outperforming expectations.
And closer to home, we're really keeping an eye on the congressional races throughout Iowa, particularly the two congressional races in eastern Iowa. This is the other candidates that are running for president in the statewide race. But if we could take a look at these congressional races, and like I said, the first district is where we would like to start. It's in southeastern Iowa. It includes cities such as Iowa City, as well as the Quad Cities, Burlington, areas in the southeast part. And I could tell you that right now, if we're not going to show them, I'll try to find them real quick.
Right now, it looks like Marionette Miller Meeks is at 52% of the vote. The Democratic challenger, Christina Bohannon, with 48% of the vote. And
that would be in the first. I could tell you about the second. If we're not getting the numbers up, perhaps we could tell you real quickly. In the second congressional district, and once again, oh, and it just changed on me. I'm so sorry.
That's exactly what happened to me.
It happened to you too? Okay, here, I've got it now if you want to get to the third. In the second district, right now, we do have Sarah Corkery, really with a strong showing with the amount of votes that are in. 18% of the vote in right now. Sarah Corkery with 48% of the vote. Ashley Hinson with 50.8%. This is only 18% of the vote in. And let's be honest, when we're talking about these early numbers, we're not quite sure where they're coming from necessarily. Sometimes urban numbers come in first. Sometimes the absentee ballots in some counties come first. Some counties that may be rural will be counting and reporting first before some urban districts. But this is the numbers that we have right now. And I could barely see that. It looks like about 21% of the votes in, with Ashley Hinson in the lead, 73,000 to 72,000 for Democrat Sarah Corkery.
Let's take a look at District 3. This covers the Des Moines metro area. Challenger Lenon Bacom trying to unseat Zach Nunn, the incumbent here, the Republican, and there are quite a few votes counted in this district. Again, District 3, there are 60% plus of the vote counted in these results, and you can see that Lenon Bacom has a comfortable lead, but my understanding when it comes to District 3, they have not yet gotten reports from any rural parts of Iowa.
So it's those Polk County numbers where you expect his strength to be very strong. Polk County being, of course, the Des Moines metropolitan area. And so that is what you're expecting. District 4 is the conservative side of the state, the most conservative part of Iowa, and we have 11% of the vote in right here. Randy Feenstra looking for re-election. I mean, very strong race. This is a rematch with Ryan Melton, and with about less than a fifth of the vote in, Randy Feenstra with 35,000 votes to 14,000 for Melton. That's a 70% to 29% race right now.
And let's really drill down on the county level data that we're seeing with TV9's Becky Phelps live in the studio. Becky?
We're going to take a look at District 2 right now. This is the Hinson versus Corkery race, where we have about 36% of the votes in. It's sitting at 51 to 47%. And where Corkery is really having a good showing is in some of these more rural counties where she's keeping the race close. In Sarah Gorder County, a lot of those early votes did favor Corkery. Hinson's coming back now. There's about 10 percentage point difference there. Also over in Dubuque County, keeping the race pretty close. Hinson won Dubuque County back in 2022 by about 3,000 votes. So Corkery, as of now, with 65% of the votes counted, keeping that race close. Hinson is, however, keeping it very close in more traditionally liberal counties, where Blackhawk County, Corkery has 55 to Hinson's 44. Hinson keeping Lynn County close as well, 57 to 41%, with about 34% of the votes counted in Lynn County. So still, again, a lot of votes left to be counted in District 2's race that is expected to be decently competitive, and so far is showing that. Back to you.
Thanks so much. And a very competitive race. District 1, Marionette Miller Meeks, the incumbent, and the challenger, Christina Bohannon. We want to take you now live to Riverside Casino. That is where Miller Meeks is with her campaign as they are watching these results stroll in. And TV9's Brian Tappick
Literally stroll in.
Exactly, joins us live. And Brian, what are you seeing tonight?
So we are in the ballroom at Riverside Casino where they are holding that election watch party. You can see behind me people getting comfortable. Very quiet though. Not a lot of people here, kind of just watching the results coming in. I did speak to a few people who say that they're cautiously optimistic. They don't want to see what happened again in 2020 happen again. They said that obviously they are here to support the Republican Party, but that this is really a divisive time and that they don't really like seeing that. I did ask one person about the polls, the Iowa poll showing the Democratic candidate, Christina Bohannon, in the lead. They said, well, they don't really believe in the polls. Take a listen.
I don't listen to the polls very much. I've seen them be wrong so many times. I don't pay much attention to them.
Now, we do know that the Congresswoman is here at the casino right now. She has not yet taken the stage at all. As we continue to watch those results roll in, we'll have more updates coming up. Live in Riverside, Brian Tabbitt, KCRG-TV9 News.
Brian, thanks so much. And it is common at this stage in the game that the candidate would not necessarily be visible at their own event. They're usually off somewhere private with their advisors watching the results come in. I can't imagine being a candidate and seeing those numbers come in. You want to have that reaction privately, perhaps.
Well, and also, I mean, you're checking in with some key precincts right now. You're checking in with your supporters where you know your strengths are and perhaps where you're looking for your weaknesses, you know, that you can grow support. And so they're tabulating in ways that we are not.
Absolutely.
And we do want to talk to Molly Swain, who is live with Christina Bohannon's campaign. She's at the Big Grove Brewery in Iowa City right now. Molly?
Hey guys, and I have not seen hide or, what's the phrase? Hide or tail of Christina Bohannon yet.
Hide or hair.
And yet many other people are here. I've talked to lots of people. Hide nor hair. Oh, okay. I'm going to hear about that for many hours after tonight is over. Anyway, many volunteers are here tonight, including Elizabeth Berrigan. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, I'm happy to be here. This is so exciting.
It is exciting. So go ahead and tell me just how you were involved with the campaign.
Well, my big focus was part of the Get Out the Vote effort and helped register students on campus. Helped set up on Iowa, the beginning part, and then also help with registering them early in the year. And we had some really good people that kind of took it and ran with that after that. And done some canvassing, done some other things. It's just amazing. It's so exciting.
Is this the first campaign for which you volunteer, or is this something you do a lot?
I try to do it a lot, but it's my first major thing to do here in Iowa. I'm new to Iowa. I've done a lot of campaign work in Texas. So it's kind of nice here because my candidates may win. So I'm very excited.
You seem excited. For people who are not here at Big Grove tonight, not at this watch party, describe it. What's the mood? How is everybody feeling?
You know, I actually think everyone is kind of quietly confident. You know, I think we feel good. I think the Seltzer poll kind of made us feel better about the Des Moines Register poll. But I also think there's a little bit of hesitation because we know how we felt in 2016. And so there's a little bit of holding back on that. But we know we worked really, really hard. Johnson County is going to have the biggest turnout ever, probably this go round, the way the preliminary stuff's coming in. And that's going to be good for us Democrats.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time and enjoy this evening. All right, I'm sending it back to you guys. Thanks.
Molly, thanks so much with the Bohannon campaign. As we go to break, please pay attention to the screen. You're going to see some more results here in the state of Iowa. Your Voice, Your Vote coverage continues in a moment.
You know, you can have a level of respect for somebody that'll put themselves out there on a ballot.
Oh,
Elizabeth, can you hear me?
no kidding.
In this day and age, I don't know why anybody would do it.
I know. That's what I tell all those guys I really admire.
Or Jim, or you want us to talk about with our first hit?
Yeah,
I would never do it.
I was joking with somebody, a candidate who was running. I was like, I ran for student.
Do you guys have any
president in
specific
college,
requests that you would like us
and
to
I
talk
ran
about
for
during this
governor
hit?
at Hoosier Girl State, and I will never run again.
no.
Yeah, so I thank them all for running every chance I get, just from standpoint.
Okay. Maybe we'll talk
How's
about
Art doing?
Okay, yeah, he's slowing down a
Yeah,
little
he
bit.
looked like he was,
first and
he
second
looked a little bit older than that.
races.
Yeah, he's just,
He's not, he wasn't quite the door knocking machine this time that he normally is, although I think he hit a lot.
he hit a lot, and then his mother-in-law passed away.
Oh, that's right, I
Yeah,
heard that. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah, and they spent a lot of time taking care of her, so. I think,
That's a good guy.
yeah, yeah, he hit over 12,000 doors. So,
Yeah.
So because they are coming to us after having talked about the second district and the first district, maybe that's what we should talk about as well, kind of a natural segue. So maybe, looks like they end with the second districts, maybe we'll start with that. And again, we can repeat a little bit too of what we said from the 8 to 9 o'clock hour, because we don't expect people to have been tuning in the entire time.
You know what, Danielle, my dad has probably been watching that. If you have a random viewer in northern Indiana. Yeah.
One outlier over there. Well, that's when I had, been working in Wisconsin, even though I was born and raised here, my parents still lived here. My mom would always watch WEAU's election results.
That's what my parents
in Wisconsin.
Parents tuned in to hear my radio interview in Northfield, Minnesota. They were like, "Can we stream this online?" I was like, "You sure can."
Yes, mic check. Let's talk about the second congressional district. Again, this race is between Republican incumbent Ashley Hinson and Megan. Mic check, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Gary, mic check.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And Brett.
1, 2, 3, 4.
All right,
5.
we've got everybody's mics.
Great.
Seconds to the end of the commercial break. Oh, are we coming straight out to us? Oh, might be straight out to us.
And welcome back to Your Voice, Your Vote coverage. And it is one of the most consequential elections perhaps in a generation unfolding before us right now tonight.
And we're starting with the national picture. So these are the candidates that Americans saw on their ballots. And as you can see right now, President Donald Trump with 52% of the vote, Vice President Harris with 46% of the vote. This is not a final. It is too early to call. But let's look now just at Iowa.
So in the Iowa race for president, you can see that Harris is doing pretty well in what is considered a Republican-leaning state of Iowa. Donald Trump with 51% of the vote total so far. Kamala Harris with 47%. Robert Kennedy remained on the Iowa ballot. He has 4,700 votes at this point.
And we do understand that Des Moines, obviously the state capital and urban center, the largest population of the state, had results early. So the strength of Harris's performance at this early hour could be due to what's coming out of Des Moines.
And as you saw, 35% of the vote was counted statewide so far. So about a third of the vote is in.
With just 15% of the vote in, now we're moving to Southeast Iowa. This is District 1. Marinette Miller Meeks, the incumbent, hoping to get a third term. She is ahead by about 5,000 votes over Christina Bohannon. This is expected to be a very tight race. It is the tightest race predicted in the state of Iowa when it comes to congressional races.
To the north of there is Northeast Iowa and it's District 2, and you see Ashley Hinson seeking re-election with a lead of about, what would you say that, about 8,000 votes right now over Sarah Corkery. This is once again about 37% of the vote in right now.
We have analysts standing by with TV9's Danielle Wagner to give us some insight into what they're reading with these early numbers. Danielle?
Jim, thank you so much. I am with our panelists. We have KCRG-TV9's political analyst Megan Goldberg, Gary Grant, Republican lobbyist, and Brett Nillis, chair of the Lynn County Democrats. Again, thank you to the three of you for being with us tonight. We appreciate it. Beth and Jim just gave us some very preliminary early results that are coming in tonight for District Race 2. And again, that is between Republican incumbent Ashley Hinson and Democratic challenger Sarah Corkery. Gary, I want to talk to you just about Ashley Hinson's name recognition in this race. In the last election, she beat out Liz Mathis with also a lot of name recognition. Do you think that will really help Ashley Hinson tonight?
Oh, absolutely. Name recognition is perhaps the most expensive part of a campaign. Introducing yourself to voters, if they feel they already know you from something else, like a newscaster in this, and that certainly helps. But I think Ashley's done yeoman's work sort of in the district. She has a wonderful staff that sort of that are providing services to constituents, and that's one of the values of incumbency is you not only have name recognition during the campaign, is you're building it through your congressional work sort of year round, instead of waiting until you're campaigning.
And Brett, the Democratic challenger in this race, again, Sarah Corkery, this is her first race that she's ever run before. She had a personal reason, breast cancer and health care, for wanting to get into the race. How do you think she's performed throughout this campaign?
I think she's done a terrific job from the standpoint of having very little support from the National Democratic Party. So taking on a challenge against an incumbent, which is really climbing a mountain in itself, and then not having the broad support that other candidates are having throughout the state, and compared to the 1st and 3rd district, she's taken on a mountain, especially running against an incumbent like Ashley Hinson, who's been in office for 2 terms, and winning such a close race 2 years ago against somebody who was really well known, Liz Mathis.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after this.
Okay, just out of curiosity, what is bug viz off? Please don't float.
Yeah.
That means something to someone.
Yeah, to our TMPs. It's the bug that you see in the lower part of the corner.
Okay.
So they have different commands for when it should be on or off, and that is coded in there. And yeah, so it's TMP speak.
Okay.
All right, that was good. So again, we have our downtime until they come back to us in about 20 minutes, not quite. I think. Again, more. Oh, kind of flying by the seat of our pants here. Do you guys need any more water?
I got some here a little bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think right.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know who's reporting. Like you said, Brett, I mean, I'd like to know where those numbers are coming from.
Yeah.
I wish I had my laptop. I should have brought my laptop from home, but it doesn't connect to the server here. Yeah. So I wouldn't be able to get my scripts and stuff, so I didn't think about it too much. But just to have my laptop to see the national results would have been helpful. Because I feel a little isolated out here as to what's actually going on.
It looks like Michigan and Wisconsin were getting bluer.
Yeah, and it's hard to say, are they just going based on what's been reported?
And I'm curious with that one, the Senate race, because
Yeah.
I worked Tammy Baldwin. She's being challenged this year.
Yeah, I would love to have seen some of the ads. I'd love to see the strategy for that one. She'd be a tough one to run against. I mean, she's got such a great story, and she's been, all outward appearances, a really good member. So.
The first year I was in Wisconsin, they took a clip of me in a news story, and the opponent ran it in an attack ad against Tammy Baldwin, who is very well liked by all accounts.
Yeah.
I was new, yes. Okay, Okay, so NBC has just called Iowa for Trump, but the AP and ABC, our affiliate, has not. So just a heads up there.
Drama.
But yeah, so this is my first year there. Like, people really didn't know who I was because I'm an Iowa girl.
We've talked a lot about presidential politics and congressional politics. Let's turn it now to county level politics.
All politics is local, they say, in some areas, don't they? And we're taking a look right now at Dubuque County Auditor. And Kevin Dragato is seeking re-election. Now, mind you, I want to stay with this race for just a moment. He is facing Keith Lucy, who is the Republican challenger. Now, Dragato has faced a lot of criticism in regards to that ARPA money that was mistakenly sent to scammers overseas rather than from his office directly to Dyersville. So that's why this race is so close. 21% of the vote reported so far for the Dubuque County Auditor.
Let's stick with Dubuque and take a look at a supervisor race there. The incumbent, Harley Potoff, easily outnumbering the challenger, who is actually not a Democrat, he's an independent, Jake Rios, 2-1 here. Again, this is very early in the night, only 20-ish% of the votes in, so we'll keep an eye on this one, but it does look like an early positive continuation of serving as supervisor for Potoff.
And as long as we're talking about supervisory races, I think we want to go to Lynn County right now. And this is an interesting race as well, with Democratic State Senator Molly Donahue, who is leading Brandy Zumba Maishide 56% to 43%, very little of the vote being reported so far.
And Lynn County Auditor, let's take a quick look. This is an open seat because Joel Miller is not seeking re-election, and not enough votes counted to know what is what here, but we're giving a look.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
Yeah,
Later.
That's what I thought, but it's
Yeah.
at 0% reporting.
Yeah,
Usually-
It might just be right.
so let's see, what's that, 2614, about 40,000, it's gonna be about 100, so yeah.
So I was trying to think of how many votes there are total for the Lynn County Auditor, for any of the countywide.
There's 150 some registered voters in
Yeah.
Lynn County. And so you figure 70%, well, 70% of, 70 to 80% will be voting. 120,000?
Yeah,
Yeah, so only. Yeah, I figure, like Todd, he hasn't really done that much. I told him, just being on the Democratic ballot, Lynn County, you're gonna win by 10,000 votes.
Yeah,
Unless there's really something going on.
Yeah.
yeah, we just did, the Lynn County numbers were in my head, because my class we talked about vote targets when you start a campaign, and so we did the example one was, what if you were gonna run for a countywide office in Lynn County?
Off, and then the green, yep, just hold it down until it turns.
Thank you for following our continuing live coverage on election night. Let's start off with a look at the race for president. This is a national snapshot, and right now we see former President Donald Trump with 52% of the vote. Again, this is nationally, with Kamala Harris coming in at 46%. What really matters here are those swing states, and the popular vote is just good to know. It's that electoral college tally that we really want to pay attention to. Let's take a look now at the state of Iowa when it comes to that vote for president. RFK stayed on the ballot, but is not having really much of an impact at all at this point. It's really between these two top candidates. Early in the night, Kamala Harris had the lead in Iowa, and that quickly switched. Now you see former President Donald Trump gathering support with 53% over 45%. Again, this is just in the state of Iowa. Let's go look at our congressional races here in District 1. Now this covers southeastern portion of Iowa. Marionette Miller Meeks. Look at how close this is. This is just about 1,000 votes dividing them, with 22% of the vote in. They said this was going to be the race to watch in Iowa. They were not kidding. Let's look at District 2. This one not considered a toss-up. Ashley Hinson, not considered a vulnerable incumbent. And with 41% of the vote in, she's pulling out ahead of Corkery with 54% of the vote, 10 percentage points ahead of Corkery. Let's quickly go to District 3, another race considered a top-up. You see Lenon Bakam, the challenger to Zach Nunn, 52% over 47%. This too close to call, but look at how many votes are in this race for District 3. 72% of the votes have been counted. I've been saying this all night. It looks like Des Moines is counting pretty quick, but those rural counties that feed into District 2, they may not have had their voices heard just yet, but the night is still young. Let's wrap it up with no surprise here. Randy Feenstra, the Republican. Wow, 73% of the vote with about a quarter of them counted.
Now, we are keeping an eye on these maps, and we want to take a look at the national map and the electoral vote. It takes a while for the computer to re-kick, and so we could take a look at what's going on nationally right now. And this has been a very interesting race, and it doesn't necessarily spell good news for Kamala Harris at this point. When you take a look at these eastern states, when you look at Pennsylvania, when you look at North Carolina, when you look at Georgia, that they're all leaning red, leaning Republican and Donald Trump right now. 198 electoral votes for Donald Trump tabulated so far, 112 for Kamala Harris. The West Coast numbers still have to come in, and those critically important battleground states such as Wisconsin and Michigan still uncertain.
Too close
but
to call.
Virginia, which is generally thought of as leaning Democratic now
yes.
because of the Washington, D.C. area becoming very Democratic, that still is undecided at this point. So this is the way the national map looks right now.
And we are keeping an eye, obviously, on races that are happening at the county, at the state House, at the state Senate level as well. And you can always find that information at KCRG.com. And those will provide also up-to-the-minute results as we receive them from the Secretary of State and auditors.
And of course, keep an eye on the bottom of the screen. The vote totals continuing to scroll right here on KCRG. Your voice, your vote coverage continues right here on TV9.
Well, polls closed here in Iowa about an hour and a half ago, and we are watching the tide push forward for Donald Trump at the state and national level. Let's start with those national numbers.
And the numbers have been coming in. Of course, we're still waiting for West Coast numbers, but as we take a look at the latest numbers that we do have, and once again, this is the national numbers for the presidency. I thought we were going to have it. It doesn't look like we do. I can tell you these are the Iowa numbers instead of the national, and you can see they have just updated with about 43, less than 45% of the vote in, and Donald Trump with a strong lead with 53% of the vote to Kamala Harris's 44%. Once again, Iowa always considered a Republican stronghold. Neither candidate campaigning in the state since the caucuses, and Kamala Harris obviously not doing it with the caucuses at that time, but less than half of the vote right now. And except for that Iowa poll this weekend, it was pretty much considered that Iowa is safely in the Republican hands.
That same poll, the Seltzer poll, took a look at congressional races. She released that through the Des Moines Register on Sunday, but the margin of error on that was 7+%,
right.
which means a 14-point swing either way, and it's still with a statistical tie. So that told me that we just really don't know too well when it comes to the congressional race. Let's take a look, if we can, at the 1st congressional district race. Now, for those of you at home who've been following politics a long time, you'll think, wait, that shouldn't be Miller Meeks and Bohannon. That should be Ashley Hinson and Corkery. No, remember, they switched them when they redid the census. So if you're confused, you're not alone. But again, this is District 1. This is Southeast Iowa. And Marionette Miller Meeks considered a vulnerable incumbent. And the race is pretty tight here, but Miller Meeks still over half the vote so far, but we cannot call this.
Yeah, it's less than a third of the vote that's been counted in so far. Now, one race that is not expected to be as close as in the 2nd district, but with those very first numbers coming in, it is relatively close, though that Hinson is now garnering a larger lead with about 41% of the vote right now, and Hinson with a commanding 16,000 vote lead, 54% to 44%, Sarah Corkery, the political newcomer.
Let's take a look at the 3rd district, and this district has a huge votes counted, considerably.
Surprisingly, compared to the other congressional districts.
74.5% of the votes counted in District 3, and Lenon Bacam hanging on to his lead, 51% over the incumbent Republican Zach Nunn, 48%. There's, 11,000-ish votes separating the two, and we are still waiting on that last quarter to come in.
And
we have an announcement to make. ABC has called for president for Iowa, former President Donald Trump being called.
So that is a projection from ABC News right now, is that Donald Trump has won Iowa. And that was expected, except for, as we were saying, the Iowa poll that came out this weekend. A lot of people were expecting a Donald Trump victory here. They weren't quite sure by how much. If we can go back to District 3 real quickly, as we were talking earlier in regards to Lenon Bacam and Zach Nunn, and as Beth has been saying, 75% of the vote in is quite amazing. And people have talked about the fact that Polk County was going to have to come in very strong for the Democrats to win. But so does the county, and I'm just trying to, Dallas, thank you, the county just to the west, Dallas County, which has become a huge suburban area. And the Democrats have been really counting on Dallas County to come strong as well.
Let's take a look at that county level conversation, because really that's what's telling the story tonight here in Iowa. Let's check in with TV9's Becky Phelps with her county board.
This is a look at how Iowa is shaping up in the presidential race. Right now, Trump with 54% of the votes counted so far. You guys just mentioned Dallas County. A lot of Trump's big lead here is coming in those rural areas that are a strong, bright red here. Dallas County, the only light red county right now, 87% of the votes, but again, still showing strongly Republican voting. A lot more of those rural counties would have needed to be a lighter red for Harris to get an advantage here in Iowa. A lot of these blue counties are counties expected to go Democratic. Polk County there, Johnson County, of course, with a strong Democratic lead. So a lot of those rural counties showing strong Republican numbers so far early, probably explaining that call for Trump.
Well, and Becky, I think what's interesting, if you want to, if we can go to Becky again and just punch on Polk County, and it really underlines what Beth was saying. Take a look at the vote count.
95% of votes already in for Polk County.
Does explain
very
that.
different from a lot of the other counties. Even in Dallas, it's 87, but in Johnson County, only 20% of the vote in. So Polk very ahead of the game here.
All right.
We have been following the candidates, not just leading up until today, but right now we are with them at their watch parties. And the Ashley Hinson camp, again, has their watch party at Spare Time in Cedar Rapids, and that's where we have TV9's Jackson Valenti standing by. I'm just wondering, Jackson, every time they see the numbers flash across the screen, I'm sure the Hinson camp is feeling more and more confident.
Yeah, I think as the numbers have started to come in, early on, I think people were really kind of surprised by the numbers. Corkery was keeping up a lot better than a lot of people here had anticipated. Of course, like you just said, as more and more precincts have started to get their numbers in, Hinson has started to pull further and further ahead, kind of what people here had expected. And the people here say the reason why is because of Hinson's focus on the economy. Hinson's whole campaign, her biggest issue was on combating inflation, helping working class families. and also helping small businesses. A lot of the things she's focused on resonate with the people here, and they say if people in Eastern Iowa and in District 2 are going to be voting with their wallets and voting based on the economy, then they think that Hinson is the pretty dominant favorite. Of course, as you guys have been saying all night long, we're still waiting on results. The race definitely has not been called yet. There's certainly room for things to change, but as we look at it right now, at least my latest numbers show Hinson leading by around 10%, like a 54-46 margin. So pretty good lead for Hinson so far. Her campaign is certainly feeling better. We haven't seen her just yet, still an empty stage, of course, as the race hasn't been called, but we'll continue to give you any updates as we do get them. Live in Cedar Rapids, Jackson Valenti, KCRG-TV9 News.
All right, Jackson, thanks.
People will have said that Sarah Corkery victory would have been a major surprise in this race. And Emily Schrod's been covering the Corkery campaign and joins us now in the studio. Emily?
Beth and Jim, like you said earlier, there's about a 10% difference between Hinson and Corkery right now, with Corkery only taking about 44% of the votes, with Hinson at 54 with about 41% of the votes. And now I did speak with Corkery earlier today, and she said she was feeling confident going into the day. As you guys were saying earlier, this is Corkery's first time running for office. This is the first time she's ever run for any office. And earlier this year I sat down with her, and one of her main campaign focuses has been access to health care. Now, she's a breast cancer survivor. That has been one of her biggest pushes. She's wanting to get health care to people so they don't have to wait on a wait list. And like we said, she's a cancer survivor, so that's been one of her main focuses. And she said that she decided to take on incumbent Ashley Hinson, and she took some time to reflect on her values and how she wanted to run this campaign.
Our first one was be authentic, and our next one was be joyful. And the one that is really great now is respect. It's called respect each other and honor differences. And if we start there, we can get so much done together and get back on track as a unified country.
Now, Corkery said she has been spending most of this week going around to the different counties in District 2 to just thank everybody who's been a part of her campaign. Right now, she's at a private watch party in her home in Cedar Falls. We will catch up with her later as those results continue to pour in. Beth and Jim.
Well, and Ashley Hinson did very well 2 years ago when she was facing Liz Mathis, a very strong Democratic candidate. So she had a real belief, perhaps, that she was going to do very well in this election.
And then the Democrats saw that and said, we are not going to put a ton of money. And, you know, as Emily mentioned, Corkery really built a campaign that was grassroots and largely not self-funded, but funded with what she could find, not from the machine.
Your voice, your vote coverage continues in just a moment. saying that Donald Trump is doing very well in some of those battleground states. We were talking about Pennsylvania. We were talking about North Carolina as well. And we do know that the votes are still too close in Wisconsin right now, as well as in the battleground state of Michigan. If we can just throw up some numbers on the screen right now so we can tell you what is going on for the presidential race in Iowa.
And you see there AP or ABC and ABC calling it for Trump. And this is still, we're waiting to see how much of a strong Trump performance will impact those congressional races. Because as we've watched tonight, Lenon Beckham in the Des Moines area in District 3, still ahead of that incumbent, Zach Nunn. Let's take a look at this, and there you see those numbers here. It's tightened up a bit, about 5,000 between them. Boy, 79.8% of the votes. If the rural portions of District 3 continue to be counted, if that's where the remaining 21% of the votes are, this could go Zach Nunn's way. But Lenon Beckham is hanging in there when it comes to, first time running for office, congressional candidate. Zach Nunn, a freshman congressman from the Des Moines area, ousted Cindy Axne just 2 years ago.
A major victory for the Republicans. Let's look at the eastern Iowa congressional districts, starting with District 1, which is southeast Iowa. That is the Iowa City, the Quad Cities, Burlington area. Marinette Miller Meeks hoping for a third term right now. A little more than a third of the vote in, so we've gotten some more numbers in, but still about an 8,000 vote difference between Meeks, Miller Meeks and Christina Bohannon, 94,000 to 86,000, a 52 to 47% differential.
And then we head north. Now, the second district, which encompasses cities like Cedar Rapids, Dubuque, Waterloo. And you can just see Ashley Hinson continuing to gain over challenger Sarah Corkery, who was really a long shot candidate for the Democrats. Ashley Hinson sitting very comfortably with more than half the votes in there tonight.
And so that is the way it looks like as far as the two eastern Iowa congressional district races go. The District 3 race, which is in central Iowa. The western district is very Republican, and so Randy Feenstra is doing very well there. But let's get some analysis on all of the vote numbers we've gotten so far.
Yeah, let's go to Danielle Wack.
Thank you so much, Beth and Jim. I'm with KCRG-TV9's political analyst Megan Goldberg, Gary Grant, Republican lobbyist, and Brett Nillis, chair of the Lynn County Democrats. As Beth and Jim reported, ABC News again projecting Donald Trump to win the state of Iowa. This is a little bit of a turn from that poll we saw come out during the weekend from the Des Moines Register Mediacom Iowa poll that at that point had Harris leading Trump. So, Megan, are you surprised by this tonight?
So I think yes and no. One thing to note is that what we're hearing tonight are all projections of who's winning. And that's because different news outlets have teams of social scientists, of statisticians, working with existing data, including from past elections, and what they're getting from precincts to project who they think the winner is. Now, that is at a very high level of certainty. But at the end of the day, one poll is not going to sort of like overwhelm the evidence we have about Iowa from the last two cycles where Trump did extremely, extremely well. They're also using data on the number of registered Republicans versus registered Democrats in the state, and what they know about turnout data. So there's a lot that goes into that. And so, of course, like this is not the final count. We don't necessarily know exactly what the margin will be. But I think the last note is that the Seltzer poll still in the margin of error could have had Trump winning by 3%, and that would have been sort of within the realm of probable outcomes from that poll. So I think, what I'm looking for going forward is as we get the rest of the vote in, what does Trump's margin look like compared to what his margin was 4 years ago?
And speaking of that, Trump did win Iowa 4 years ago. Gary, we were talking earlier that, polls are not the final results. Today is with voters going. So what are your thoughts on what we're seeing tonight?
Well, what I think we could be seeing is a function of people who are surveyed in these polls become progressively less sort of willing to participate or to be forthcoming with pollsters. Because I think, Megan, you referenced earlier that the Seltzer poll was reliant heavily on people who, number one, say they're going to vote and then say who they're going to vote for. And I think we've seen sort of progressively polls become less and less reliable since 2016. I think depending on the methodology that's used, Some of them can come pretty close, but you know, this is why the only poll that matters is on election day. They can be instructive in developing strategies for where to put resources, but anybody that relies on them, I just think that it's just they're not as they're becoming. Even though the technology is getting better, the results seem to become less and less reliable.
And Brett, I'm sure seeing that poll during the weekend, maybe it gave Democrats some hope.
Oh yeah, it did offer a little bit of enthusiasm there in terms of maybe things are changing and going in a different direction here. And it's always, you have to look at a standpoint of 1 point doesn't create a trend or show you the actual results. And so we have to look at it from that perspective, is that was one moment in time, and taking a snapshot of what things might have looked at in terms of the people that they surveyed and the estimates that they were making in terms of what the end projections might be. So, but as we've all mentioned, it's really going to be a matter of what are those final vote counts, and there's still 50% yet to go.
Yeah, final vote counts and how that plays into those congressional races that we again are following so closely tonight. Let's send it back to Beth and Jim.
Thank you, Danielle. And we can say, no surprise here, the AP has called it in District 4 for Randy Feenstra, the Republican representing Western Iowa.
Brian Tabak is keeping an eye on the campaign of Marionette Miller Meeks. He is live right now in Riverside. Brian?
Jim, Beth, we are at Riverside Casino in the ballroom right now, where things are getting a little bit louder in here. Not too much, but they're watching those results coming in, and they're seeing that narrow lead that the congresswoman is taking. And that's, again, like we've been talking about, different than that Seltzer poll, the Des Moines Register poll that we'd seen showing Democratic candidate Christina Bohannon having that lead in this race. We did speak to some people who said that they were cautiously optimistic coming here tonight and seeing some of the Republicans start to really...
I don't listen to the polls very much. I've seen them be wrong so many times. I don't pay much attention to them.
The Congressman also stating today, this morning, that poll was not really something that she was following this whole time. She said that she felt good with the election results. They spent a lot of time this morning going to several different sites trying to ramp up their last-minute support, going to Pella, going to Fairfield, as well as to Tipton this morning. Again, the Congressman is here at the hotel watching the results coming in. You can hear some clapping going on right now. But we will wait as the Congressman, some of the campaign people, here she comes right now. Let's take a step aside here as the Congresswoman starts making her way, people standing up as she comes over, greet some of her supporters. We talked to a lot of friends here of hers as well. Let's go ahead and just take a look in here real quick.
And Brian, while we're waiting for her, and she's greeting supporters, of course, we do have some of the numbers that are in. I don't know if we're able to show the numbers so far in District 1 that we have so far, as Miller Meeks is greeting some of her supporters before she takes the podium. And Beth, like you said, the numbers are coming in now with 45% of the vote in.
And it is really flipped. And again, not even half the vote counted, but Marionette Miller Meeks with some solid numbers right here, 54%. I don't know exactly where those votes are coming in at when it comes to District 1, but we will keep an eye on that.
But Miller Meeks is now in the ballroom at the Riverside Casino, greeting her supporters right now. I believe we're going to Molly Swain right now. She's covering the opposite part of this campaign, Christina Bohannon, and Molly is in Iowa City. Molly?
That's right, guys. And the thing that's been the focal point of this watch party, you can see the big board behind me, the projector screen. That's where everybody has been watching the numbers come in. I've been speaking to volunteers throughout the evening. I also just spoke to Democratic Iowa State Representative Adam Zabner. I asked him why this race was so important to Iowa.
Marionette Miller Meeks represents almost everything that's wrong with Washington, D.C. And I think the question tonight is whether Iowa's 1st District is going to have someone who actually fights for us or someone who prefers to be a lackey for big Republicans in her party.
Everybody's been checking the results throughout the evening on this big board. The few times that I've checked, it seems like Marionette Miller Meeks and Christina Bohanna have stayed throughout the night within a few thousand votes of each other. But like you guys were saying, we really don't know until all the votes are in. So I'm going to keep watching right here in Iowa City. Molly Swain, KCRG, TV9 News.
Thank you, Molly. I don't know if, I mean, we're kind of seeing something on the national and the local and the statewide trend for Republicans seeming to break. Now, mind you, a lot of votes still have to be counted, but early results are really showing some surges for the Republican Party.
It is, and we want to take a look at two questions that may have surprised some folks if they don't follow news and politics super quickly when they flipped their ballot over to vote. And those were the two constitutional amendment questions. And if we could take a look at those results, the first one, I believe, had to do with should people be 18 to vote in elections, and it also was worded in such a way that would enshrine in the state's constitution that non-citizens could not participate in elections. And with more than half the vote in, the yeses 3-1 over the no's.
It was basically with the Iowa Constitution now following up with what the U.S. Constitution was already, but it also did point out in this that allowed that an 18-year-old who was 17 during a primary could still cast a ballot for the primary as long as they were turning 18 for the general election.
And in the second question on the ballot, when it came to a constitutional amendment here in Iowa, this one would allow the governor to appoint a lieutenant governor, and it wouldn't just be a lieutenant governor appointee. We all remember when Governor Kim Reynolds became governor and she appointed Adam Gregg, but he couldn't be the actual lieutenant governor. He was acting lieutenant governor because the Constitution had this little pause that wouldn't let him have that full title. And now, with this vote likely giving Kim Reynolds the ability to tap a lieutenant governor, I expect, and I'm sure we all do, her to do so not long after these votes are finalized.
So many numbers still to be counted, and we are ready to do it for you tonight. Your voice, your vote coverage continues in just a moment. And welcome back. In these closing moments of this hour, I want to take a look at the two big congressional districts in eastern Iowa.
Let's take a look at District 1. We have the incumbent Marionette Miller Meeks, the Republican, with, that just updated. Now 67% of the vote counted, and she has grown her lead even further. We're talking more than 15,000 votes between Christina Bohannon and Marionette Miller Meeks, and this has widened as we've watched more votes get counted.
This is because the Scott County vote all got dumped at one time. And in District 2, which is the other eastern Iowa race, Ashley Hinson with 57% of the vote right now. 68% of the vote is counted in this district so far.
And we know that in Lynn County specifically, the auditor said some of these results might take a while to come in because they had such a crush of absentee votes to plod through today.
We'll talk about that at the top of the hour. We'll see you then.
Ago, and we now know the winner for president in the state of Iowa, and that is Donald Trump.
ABC News is projecting Donald Trump the winner in Iowa. 696,000 votes, better known as about 58 or 56%. I'm having troubles reading that screen. 56% of the vote total right now, with about 70% of the vote in.
Let's take a look at congressional races in the state of Iowa. Starting with District 1 in southeast Iowa, the incumbent Marionette Miller Meeks has grown her lead over Christina Bohannon as of late. And as Jim mentioned earlier, Scott County had a huge dump of votes. That's not a negative thing. That just means they counted all the votes and released them to the public to let them know the numbers recently. And look at that, 68% of the vote in Marionette Miller Meeks with 52% of the vote.
And that's the way Scott County's been doing in the last few elections. Instead of it trickling in, they, as we call it, a vote dump, all of them come in at one time. District 2 is just to the north of there. This was not expected to be that close of a race. Sarah Corkery with 41% of the vote. Ashley Hinson, the incumbent, with a sizable lead with 81% of the vote counted.
But now District 3 is considered to be a very close race. The incumbent Zach Nunn now pulling ahead of Lenon Bacan, and this area has the highest votes tallied to date, 85% of the votes in, and Zach Nunn just squeaking ahead with about 3,000 votes over Bacan.
So much of the Polk County vote, the Des Moines area, is counted already, and that's why this District 3, as Beth said, 85% of the vote is in. Let's go to District 4, the safe Republican seat if there ever is one, and ABC and the Associated Press declaring Randy Feenstra, the incumbent, the winner once again, 74% of the vote, even though half of the vote counted so far in western Iowa. It is such a strongly conservative Republican area.
We want to look more deeply at what's happening at the county level when it comes to the vote for president. Let's go now to TV9's Becky Phelps live in studio.
We've got about 73% of the votes counted in Iowa so far. Like we've said, Trump with a strong lead. Ben called for Iowa, 56% of the vote going to Trump right now, 42% going to Kamala Harris. And you can see a lot of these counties a strong red, just like they were in the 2020 election. To keep any kind of lead or to keep the race close, then these would have to be light red for Harris to kind of have a chance to keep that race close. Back to you guys.
Becky, thank you so much. We can also now report another final in Iowa, 2nd Congressional District. Ashley Hinson, the incumbent, has earned a third term in Congress. CNN has called this for her. She has been leading all night, and really this was not considered a toss-up at all. She was not a vulnerable candidate, not a vulnerable incumbent, and she has won another term, another 2 years in D.C., and that is over her competitor, Sarah Corkery, who was a long shot candidate. This was her first foray into politics, and right now you can see Ashley Hinson with more than 15 points over Sarah Corkery, and again, Hinson the winner, CNN has called it.
And as we decide where we're going to go next, we should point out about 19% of the vote is counted, but it seems to be an insurmountable amount for Sarah Corkery. We do have live coverage of the Hinson campaign, and Jackson Valenti is joining us live right now in Cedar Rapids. Jackson, what can you tell us?
Yeah, guys, looking around, I mean, you can immediately tell the energy changed here. The screens behind us just called the race for Hinson. I was told a couple of minutes ago we'd see Hinson any minute now. People obviously presume that she's going to be up here speaking any second now. Again, we haven't seen her just yet, but CNN has called the race. People here kind of have been eagerly anticipating for this race to be called. Nobody really celebrated until it was officially called, but like you guys have been reporting, as the night went on, Hinson got a bigger and bigger lead. At this point, we're just waiting for her to get here. As she does come here, of course, we'll come back. We'll share her message with you, but until then, we'll continue to keep you updated with everything. Once we see her, again, we'll see her. Live in Cedar Rapids, Jackson Valenti, KCRG-TV9 News.
All right, thank you, Jackson. And if she does come before her supporters in this half hour, hopefully we'll be able to get to it. We are, of course, keeping an eye on this presidential election that's unfolding before us as well.
Yeah, we still don't know who will be the next president of the United States. Let's take a look at the national numbers as those are coming in. And we understand that Donald Trump is in pretty strong position tonight. As we know, in those battleground states, they matter not more than everybody else, but it's in a way they do. Well, what we're watching.
It's interesting, too, is the Associated Press is saying that right now, or I should say ABC News is saying right now, Donald Trump has 214 electoral votes to Harris's 145. That's a sizable lead. And Becky Phelps is also keeping an eye. She's got the big map, and she could tell us a little bit more about what I'm talking about.
We've got some projections here with Harris now 179. California coming in, giving her a pretty big boost there. But you can see some of these states still left undecided. Nevada obviously is going to be a big one, swing state that still have to be called. But you can see again, Trump with 214 electoral votes so far projected. They need 270 to win. So these last few are really going to come down. We're still waiting on Pennsylvania, Michigan, very important swing states that will really come down to the wire between these two candidates.
So true. Becky, thank you so much. You know, we've been talking obviously about presidential politics and, you know, constitutional questions in Congress, but we're also keeping an eye on school bond issues and levies that certain communities and especially school districts are asking voters to support today.
And also there's some EMS levies that are on the ballot to help some rural ambulance services continue serving all of their communities. KCRG-TV9's Mia Bearden has been joining us now live to break down those results. You've been keeping an eye on all of those issues.
Yes, lots of bond questions and a few levies on ballots across Iowa today. And remember, a bond requires 60% support to pass. Now, first up is Decorah. The Decorah Community School District asked voters to pass a $38 million bond issue for a new elementary school. And as you can see, recorded votes, about 65% had voted yes and about 34% have voted no.
That is now for this center point. Yeah. And
yes.
then this is Waterloo. They're advancing a little fast on you. I'm sorry.
No problem. And now, as you said, we're going back to Waterloo. So Waterloo voters are weighing in on about $165 million high school merger plan now, if approved. A central middle school would be converted into a new high school building, and that would be connected to the Waterloo Career Center. And as you can see, those votes have not come in, but we will update you as those numbers come in.
All right. Thank you very much, Mia, for the latest. And we're keeping an eye on those elections, dollars and cents issues that we're keeping an eye on as well.
Hinson, it has been called for her, and she is taking the stage now. Let's listen in.
Who knocked a door, made a phone call, wrote a check, or sent a word of encouragement my way, those were greatly appreciated over the past couple months, and you made all the difference in this race. We really did this together. I always run like I'm 10 points behind. I think you know that. I'm going to work my tail off for this district to secure the victory, and we left nothing to chance, and boy, did we prove that Des Moines Register poll wrong, didn't we? Well, this is a good example of what happens when you travel to every corner of the district to earn every single vote. And that hard work paid off because tonight we sent a message, a loud and clear message, that Iowans believe in strong conservative leadership. We sent a message that it is your money, it is not the government's money. We also sent a message that girls' sports are for girls, not for biological men. And most importantly, we sent a message that our rights come from God, not from the government. You know, here in Iowa, we spend within our means. We always support our law enforcement, and we respect parents and families. But our values and our way of life have come under attack by liberals like Kamala Harris, who want to turn our great country into a liberal wasteland. We're not going to let them do it, are we? No, we're not. These are radicals. They want to force taxpayers to pay for sex change surgeries for inmates. They think we should ban fracking and buy our energy from countries that hate our guts. They believe illegal immigrants should be given every handout under the sun, and that we should all be stuck with the bill. I say no to that, don't you? Absolutely. You know, they want America to cave. They want us to cave and take a back seat on the global stage. They're radical, they're wrong, and we are going to stop them. Are you with me to get this vote? So we are still waiting for a lot of those final results to roll in from across the country, but I don't know about you, I think tomorrow's going to be a great day, don't you? I think we're going to wake up happy. It's the day we officially send Joe Biden to the beach, into retirement, and Kamala Harris hopefully packing.
Ashley Hinson addressing her supporters in Cedar Rapids at Spare Time. It has been called for Ashley Hinson, and she will go for a third term in Congress.
About 57% of the vote that she has gotten so far, with still it's 81% that has been counted, but a sizable, insurmountable amount that she has gotten so far. Your voice, your vote coverage continues in a moment.
watching those vote tallies come in for you on this election night, and we want to start with the race for president.
And the presidential numbers nationwide have been coming in, East Coast to the West Coast. And let's take a look at the numbers as we see them right now, with Donald Trump leading nationwide. But we're going to start with the Iowa numbers first, and that is with Donald Trump declared the winner by both the Associated Press and ABC with 56% of the vote and 76% of the vote counted.
And let's take a look now at the next race we're going to discuss is the 1st Congressional District in Southeast Iowa. The incumbent Marionette Miller Meeks continuing to pull ahead of Christina Bohannon. Now 70% of the votes are counted. No one has called this race, so we're just going to keep an eye on this one for tonight.
It is a sizable lead for Marionette Miller Meeks right now. In the 2nd District, it is already a declared win for Ashley Hinson, who has just given her speech thanking her supporters. 57% of the vote that she's gotten, 85% of the vote counted.
And let's look at District 3, or we're going to look at that in just a moment. First, there we go. Thanks, friends. There's Zach Nunn, still so close. Look at that, 3,000 votes separating the two, with 88% of the vote in. District 3 covers Dallas County, Polk County, which includes the state capital of Des Moines.
And Danielle Wagner and our team of analysts are joining us right now. Take a look at these numbers, and there are some interesting numbers to take a look at.
Yes, Beth and Jim, thank you so much. I'm joined again by our political analyst, Megan Goldberg with Cornell College, Gary Grant, Republican lobbyist, and Brett Nillis, the chair of the Lynn County Democratic Party. Thank you all again for joining us on this election night. I want to talk about the District 1 race between Marionette Miller Meeks and Christina Bohannon. Again, this is a rematch from 2022. Polls out during the weekend led us to believe it might be a really tight toss-up race, but currently we are seeing Miller Meeks leading this race. Gary, what are your thoughts on this race tonight with Miller Meeks currently in the lead?
Well, I think I don't think, well, obviously all the votes aren't in. I don't remember, I didn't see what it looked like 80% reporting or something like that. This is where I think we talked earlier about the enthusiasm gap, that if it were present and if there is an enthusiasm gap, this is the race we might see it. I'm not sure we're seeing an enthusiasm gap given these numbers, unless we don't know the counties that haven't reported yet. So, I mean, these numbers are still pretty close, but we don't seem to be seeing an enthusiasm gap yet.
And this race, again, has not been called. District 2 between Ashley Hinson and Sarah Corkery has been called for Hinson. Still waiting for the race between Miller Meeks and Christina Bohannon in District 1. Brett, what are your thoughts on this race as we're seeing it unfold, this rematch from 2022?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of trying to unseat an incumbent. It's going to tighten up the race no matter what. But I think it really is a matter of waiting to see where the votes are at that still are outstanding. If Johnson County has reported entirely yet or partially in, I think that might make a big difference as well. And I think that's partly why they haven't called it yet.
Megan, what are your insights onto this race? Again, it's been referred to as a toss-up, but you've talked about how difficult it can be to unseat an incumbent.
Right, so it's extremely difficult to unseat an incumbent. They have a very high re-election rate. But I think Brett's point is exactly right. The reason it hasn't been called yet is based on where we don't have votes from yet. And so that's one of the things about all of these races in Iowa, especially the competitive ones, that it is a balance between the more urban areas of the district and the more rural areas, and trying to figure out for each candidate, but obviously Bohannon is going to do better in Iowa City in the more urban areas. That tends to be the case for Democrats. Miller Meeks is going to do better in the rural areas. And it's sort of for both of them figuring out how much can they lose by in the areas that are less friendly to them and how much can they win by. And then it becomes not a persuasion campaign, but a mobilization one of can you get your voters out there in those areas where you're stronger.
Well, we thank all of you for your insight. Again, Brett Nillis, chair of the Lynn County Democratic Party, Gary Grant, a Republican lobbyist, and KCRG-TV9's political analyst, Megan Goldberg. Jim and Beth, will send it back to you.
Danielle, thank you so much. It has just flipped again in District 1.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Danielle, that we had to interrupt you, but if we can go to the full screen as far as District 1 is concerned, and then we'll go to Becky Phelps, who can perhaps explain a little bit more. But take a look at this surprising development that has just occurred in the last few minutes. Now we got 80% or 81% of the vote in, with Christina Bohannon now in the lead over Marinette Miller Meeks. This has happened just moments ago. Becky Phelps was the first to notice that these vote changes were occurring. And let's go to her right now to perhaps explain a little county by county what's going on here.
It's a very, very tight race, a close race still happening here in District 1, a very close race, but it's about 7,000 votes.
We're gonna help you out.
7,000 votes is the difference right now. Sorry, we're having a microphone issue, but it's coming a lot. Oops, sorry. Coming in the Scott County race. Scott County ballots dropped very late, and Christina Bohannon is holding on to a lead in Scott County. That's helping her. Also, a lead in Jefferson County, which is a very tight race there. Johnson County, really. 87% of the votes now in Johnson County. That was just 20% of the votes in earlier, and that's probably where this late surge is coming from here in Johnson County. She's now got 70%, nearly 60,000 votes in Johnson County to Miller Meeks's nearly 25,000. So again, a little bit of a late surge, a flip-flop for Bohannon and Miller Meeks. We will continue to keep an eye on that race.
Yeah, a major surge, and once again, we want to thank our audio technician, Beth Malicki, who was there in a moment's notice to help.
I'm wearing
out.
tennis shoes for a reason.
It's a team sport here.
So Christina Bohannon now 6,760 votes ahead of Marinette Miller Meeks. Let's go to the Bohannon camp there in Iowa City at Big Grove. Molly, have they seen the change again? It could flip back. We still don't have a final.
Have they seen the change? I heard it when they saw the change. Everybody looked toward the board and a cheer erupted throughout the room. I thought Bohannon was coming into the room. I locked eyes with someone and he said Johnson County's results just came in. So we definitely saw when it switched, and like you guys said, it could switch again. I've been refreshing my phone on the Secretary of State's website and I'm seeing 169,000 Bohannon, 157,000 for Miller Meeks. Again, it's been kind of flip-flopping at this point, so we'll see, but I think it definitely energized the room, so we'll keep watching. Send back to you guys.
All right, thank you very much, Molly. It's obvious that you have to count all the votes.
You do.
And some of these counties do, and we keep using the term dump, but that's usually what's called as a vote dump, is that all of a sudden they release all of the vote totals from all the precincts at once, or at least a majority of the precincts at once. And so you have these big changes sometimes in the makeup of a race.
So we want to take a look at two issues that have seen pretty sizable support, and those are the amendments to the state constitution. One referencing who can vote, and it just codified what already happens in practice in the state constitution, and that is that you have to be 18 on election day to vote. You can be 17 in the primary, but on the election day you have to be 18. And also the language here put it into state constitution, if this passes, and it looks like it will, that you have to be a citizen in order to vote, which is also the current practice.
And the other amendment, mind you, these were the questions around the back part of your ballot, was having to do with filling vacancies, is what we have up there as at the top. But what it dates back to actually is Governor Branstad leaving for China, and that Kim Reynolds was then moving up to governor. And the real question was, what happens with the lieutenant governorship? And so this now really clarifies the role of the lieutenant governor to become the governor. And it also, as Beth was pointing out, really has ramifications even today when it comes to Lieutenant Governor Gregg stepping down.
Yeah, because right now Iowa does not have a lieutenant governor, and when Governor Reynolds chooses her partner in Des Moines, it won't be an acting, it will be an actual lieutenant governor if that vote holds, which it's gonna. We're gonna be right back. More vote totals when we return. Your voice, your vote here on TV9.
It would make it so much easier.
You know, they do have tanning beds, you know, tanning
Yeah,
places.
but that costs money. The
It's not-
sun is
it's
free.
not healthy for you to get
The sun is free. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
And welcome back to continuing Your Voice, Your Vote coverage.
And let's go now to TV9's Abigail Curtin live with the Lynn County Auditor. As we understand, they had a crush of absentee votes come in and they thought this might push them back. How are they doing on the count tonight?
Well, it is still a work in progress. There are people currently counting in the basement, but like you said, I've got Lynn County Auditor Joel Miller right here. So Joel, how much voter turnout did we actually end up seeing in Lynn County this election?
About 72%.
Okay, so that was kind of on par with what you were saying earlier, around 75%. Is that on par with other years?
Well, we usually get into the 70s. I was hoping it'd be higher, but 72 is good.
So you mentioned earlier that there has been a surge of early voting, absentee voting that has kind of slowed down the counting process. Can you explain that a little bit more as to what's going on and why we're seeing such a surge?
Well, we had over 36,000 in-person early voters this year in the 20 days of early voting, and we had another 15,000 mail ballots, and those take longer to process than, say, voting today, which is voters feed the ballot into the machine, and then the machine counts it, and then those results come back to us.
Gotcha. So those absentee ballots, they're counted by hand, so it can take longer for somebody to read through them, process the information, and publish it, correct?
Right, and the affidavit envelopes have to be certified that the signature's on there.
All right, thank you so much, Abigail, and Auditor Joel Miller.
All right. Your Voice, Your Vote coverage continues in a moment.
Half of the congressional races in Iowa still too close to call, including District 1, where Christina Bohannon is ahead of Marinette Miller-Meeks with just about 5,000 votes, 82% of the vote counted.
District number 2, Ashley Hinson already declared the winner.
And District 3, also too close to call. Zach Nunn has now pulled ahead the Republican, almost 90% of the vote in, and just about 6,000 votes separating Nunn from Lanon Bakam. It's going to be a long night for them.
Election coverage continues with ABC News, and we're keeping an eye. Can you punch up the President of the United States race right now?
Here's
in
Iowa.
We can see that Donald Trump declared the winner in Iowa, and the race for president across the nation is still 51% for Donald Trump, 47% for Kamala Harris.
And we will have all analysis and results coming up on the TV9 News tomorrow, of course. But I'm sure so many folks are still waiting to see if president is going to be called tonight. ABC will continue that coverage in just a moment.
Thanks for joining us for Your Voice, Your Vote coverage on KCRG TV9.